Hello everyone, it is a new week and also a new room in Escape the Readathon. But before I can begin reading for the room that my team is currently in, I have a few books that I need to read that don't fit the prompt. And so I will just be reading preemptively and then submit them for pages when we get there. The first book, which I actually finished reading this morning before I started filming, is I finished Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh, which I started earlier in the month but put on pause in order to read more books for Escape the Readathon. Binding 13, I have mixed feelings about, because on the one hand, there are things that I really like about it, and on the other hand, there are things that I really don't like about it. And the things that I like and the things that I don't like are both tied to one key aspect of the book, which is the pacing. This book is very slowly paced. We spend a lot of time on very specific events, and on the one hand, that gives me some of the things that I really love, which is we had a lot of really strong character development for people that weren't the main characters, that weren't Shannon and Johnny, and also gave us really great banter and conversations between the characters. There were like at least 3 moments that I can think of where I was genuinely laughing my ass off at this book. I think the humor in it was really great. On the other hand, the pacing itself is an issue for me because I felt like it was going so slow, and there were times when I was like, okay, I feel like we've spent enough time in this moment, and the ending just felt so abrupt to me. Like, for a 600-page book, I feel like we should have been able to complete Shannon and Johnny's story, but no, there is another 600-page sequel that you need to read in order to get the conclusion to Shannon and Johnny's story. I feel like if the pacing were a bit better, they could have maybe just been one book. And one of the things that I thought after finishing it, especially with how the book finishes, is it almost feels like the author wanted it to be one book, but she had so much to put into it and she didn't want to cut anything. And so instead, she just made it 2 books by cutting it at the climax. And I am not a big fan of that method. But at the same time, the slower pace allowed so much character work to go into the story that I really enjoyed. And so because of all of this, I am giving the book a 3.5 star rating. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun, and it stood out to me because of that humor and everything. But the pacing and the amount of time we spent at certain moments and giving certain characters attention, I felt like we didn't really need some of that, and so it bogged the story down a bit. And so 3.5, which is like kind of middle of the road for me. A 3-star is something that, like, it was good, I had a lot of fun with it, but it didn't really stand out from other things that I've read. A 4 for me is, this was a really fun read, I really enjoyed this, but there were just like 1 or 2 details that like I got caught up in, and so it prevented me from giving a 5-star rating. This Binding 13 is like right in the middle of those 2 things, because it did stand out to me with the humor and the character development, but the pacing really threw me off and I kept getting caught up in it, which is why it's not a 4. So that is my thoughts on Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. And then the other book that I was going to read for pages before I started reading for the room prompt that my team is in. I actually just checked, and it automatically returned itself to my library because I didn't read it fast enough. So I will not be reading that, and instead I will just be jumping right into the prompt that my team is reading for, which is a book that you discovered through YouTube. Now, here's the thing, I don't discover very many books through BookTube. A lot of the times I find them either on Goodreads or Book Talk first, and then I see them on BookTube. But there are, in fact, two that I can think of off the top of my head. Well, three that I can think of off the top of my head that I found through BookTube. It's just that two of them I do not have at the moment, and I already have some books out from the library, and I'm going to be wanting to prioritize those once I get to them, so I don't want to take anything else out too quickly. I think I'll check around to see if I can get access to the two other ones that I'm thinking of. That being Half City by, I believe, Kate Golden. I want to say Kate Golden, but I might be wrong. I'll pop it up on the screen so that you know if I'm a loser and got it wrong. And the other one being Broken Bonds, whose author I can't remember at the moment, but again, I'll pop it up on the screen. And then the one that I do have right now, which I'm going to be starting to read, is the ever so famous on BookTube the past month or two, Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. I learned about this series because I have started to get very into readathons, competitive readathons the past couple of months. As you can tell from literally all of my vlogs, I've been competing in one. And all of the hosts talk about this series, and it sounds so fun, and I really want to give it a try and see what all the hype is about. So I'm going to be reading Dungeon Crawler Carl. Hello, it is now Saturday morning. I think I only have like one or two more chapters left of part one of Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman, and I have been having a really fun time with it. I love Princess Donut. She is an icon. But my team sadly has moved on to our next room, which means that I'm going to be temporarily putting Dungeon Crawler Carl down in order to read for books that will get us in. And the current prompt that we are reading for is randomized books. So I have compiled the books that I currently have out from the library, as well as a book that I just bought, which I have been really looking forward to. I added that to the list. So let us see what the spinner wheel has in store for me. And the spinner wheel has spoken. I am going to be reading The Rose Bargain by Sasha Peyton Smith. This is a fae romance story, which is actually really interesting based off of the description because it appears to be in a kind of Regency era-esque setting, and there's a big plot device, I guess I would call it, where women of this society make fae bargains in order to get qualities and traits which make them more attractive in a marriage, which I think is a really cool tool to explore the kind of standards of beauty and the expectations of women in this society. So I'm intrigued as to how deep this is going to get, or if it's going to stay kind of surface level exploration of that and focus more on the romance. I'm intrigued. So let's get reading. I have just finished reading The Rose Bargain by Sasha Peyton Smith. This was a fun book. I really like the premise and I liked all of the characters. I think my favorite part of this book was that we get a chapter from each of the... Okay, first of all, the premise I gave earlier wasn't perfect. So the main purpose of this book is that the Fae Prince is looking to get married, and our main character is a bride candidate, and so she is competing against 5 other girls in order to win the affection of this prince. And I think my favorite part of this was that we got a chapter from each of the contestants, kind of giving us a look at their backstory and why they're competing and what they are hoping to achieve. And I think that that was really cool. I like that they weren't just reduced to the main character's rivals and that there was a sense of camaraderie between them even while they were competing. It wasn't just like, oh, the girls are fighting over a boy. I enjoyed that. I will say I wasn't the biggest fan of the twist at the end of the story. I feel like it was not foreshadowed enough to, like, it came out of nowhere to me. And I was like, I feel like there should have been some subtle hints dropped throughout earlier parts of this book, because it kind of just felt like they needed an explanation as to why the second member of the love triangle, who wasn't the main love interest, why we shouldn't like him. And I don't know, I think I'm upset about it because a part of me really wishes that it was a love triangle where, you know, neither of the options are bad and the guy who doesn't get picked by the main character does get a happy ending, just not with her. But no, we did not go that route, which it is what it is. It was still a very fun book. I had a good time. And it's now time to pick my next read. So let's go consult the spinner for that. Okay, so I will be reading His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Navik. This is a historical fantasy, much like The Rose Bargain, but instead of everyone's favorite fantasy creature, the Fae, it is everyone's favorite fantasy creature, the dragons. So what I know about this from the description is it's set during one of England and France's wars. They have been in war too many times for me to be able to tell you which one it is. It's the one with Bonaparte. Sue me, I'm not a history major. And this member of the British Navy discovers a baby dragon, and he bonds with the baby dragon, and the king is like, let's use this dragon to fight in the war since France has a bunch of dragons and we don't. That's my understanding of the story. Yeah, I'm starting to think maybe I should just start reading you guys the descriptions of books instead of trying to explain them in my own words. I feel like that would be more efficient. Perhaps leave your thoughts in the comments. But yeah, so I'm going to begin reading His Majesty's Dragon, and we'll see what I think of it. It is Sunday afternoon, it's just around noon, and I have finished reading His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Navik. This was a very fun read. I don't read very many alternative history books, contrary to what these last two reads suggest, but the premise very much intrigued me with how would warfare differ in our world if there was magic and magical creatures like dragons. And I think that this was a very good take on how things would be different and how the officers would feel about their dragon companions compared to how society would view the dragons, and also some of like the customs and beliefs that society would form around the various dragon breeds and how different people would treat them differently. I think it was a very fun read. I really enjoyed the bond between our main character Lawrence and his dragon Temeraire. They were very cute, and I also loved the bonds between some of the other dragon riders and their dragons. Yeah, I don't have that much else to say about this. It was just a very fun read. I enjoyed the military tactic training warfare aspect of it. It didn't like detract my enjoyment or anything. Yeah, it was a good book. That's what I have to say about it, because again, I don't read very much alternative history, so I don't really have anything to compare it to. But yeah, so it is time to start my next book, and instead of doing the spinner wheel, I decided to run a poll within my team's channel on the Escape the Readathon Discord. And so I put up my 4 books that were remaining on the spinner wheel, and this was the result. And clearly the fake divination offense and the lost world, which is what those emojis were representing, tied. So I ran it again, and the lost world won. So I'm going to be starting to read The Lost World by Michael Crichton. It is now Tuesday evening, and I have not been giving you guys updates because I started my summer job on Monday, and that has been keeping me very busy. But it is a job in which I have a decent amount of downtime, and I have been using that downtime to read. So I finished reading The Lost World. That was very fun. I do think that Jurassic Park is better in my mind, and I think most of that is, number one, the kids in Jurassic Park didn't annoy me as much as the kids in The Lost World. Granted, the kids in The Lost World were also more useful than the kids in Jurassic Park. I had a lot more pity for the kids and what they were experiencing in Jurassic Park because they weren't really there by choice. They were brought in by their grandpa, and the kids in the Lost World were very explicitly told by the adults, no, do not come, and they snuck onto the mission. But for the most part, I did find the characters of the Lost World more likable than some of the characters in Jurassic Park. But my biggest gripe, I feel, is Ian Malcolm, who very infamously was resurrected in the Lost World after having died at the end of Jurassic Park and being left on the island as it was bombed. He did not feel like the same character. Ian Malcolm in The Lost World felt like a completely different person from Ian Malcolm of Jurassic Park. From the stance that he took surrounding his studies, and also to his willingness to be around dinosaurs a second time. I just don't understand why that man would willingly choose to go to Isla Sorna. I think the movie did a much better job of, like, explaining why Malcolm would choose to go to the island. Not, like, of his own will, really, but because someone else is being stupid and it's someone he cares about, so he's going. But other than that, it was very good, very fun. And on top of that, I also finished reading Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. This book is such a fun ride. I think it does a really good job of balancing its humor with some of its darker themes, exploring morality when someone is trying to survive in a hopeless scenario, or to them what seems like a hopeless scenario. And the characters are all very fun and interesting. Princess Donut is definitely my favorite so far, but Carl is a close second. And I'm excited to see where the rest of this series goes. I think it's going to be very fun overall, and I definitely see why so many people on BookTube have fallen in love with the series. I don't think I'm quite in love yet, like favorite series of all time level yet, but I think with one or two more books I could get there. And my final update for you all is that I'm currently reading a new book for Pages, and that is The Fake Divination Offense by Sara Raasch. This is set in an urban fantasy United States and is very reminiscent and based on D&D classes and races. We are following a half-orc named, not orc, we are following a half-giant named Auroch as he is attempting to rebuild his reputation in the pro sports community after doing something kind of controversial, but ultimately it was the right thing to do. And to fix his reputation, he is getting into a fake PR relationship with a cheerleader for his team. And it's about them coming to terms with their selves and their relationship. And this is by my absolute all-time favorite author, and so far I'm having a really fun time. I'm about a third of the way through, and just the character depth and the way that their individual traumas are written is so good. So I'm looking forward to continuing to read that and updating you guys in next week's vlog, which will also be the final vlog for Escape the Readathon. I am hoping that my team wins, but only time will tell. And I will see you all when that time comes.